What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are going to be talking about the top tight ends in the 2025 NFL Draft. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Do content like this all the damn time. Let's get right into this. You know what? I'm back. It's been a minute. I tried to make some content when I was sick. Y'all can watch that one. I was struggling. And then obviously some stuff has been going on. You guys can feel free to read the community note on that. But we're back. And for the month of July, I got a little surprise for you. We're going to be making a video every day. I did it last year. I like using July as my opportunity to get out essentially the deep dives. It's like a great opportunity and a great excuse to make sure that I actually do all of them. So we're going to be doing all those. Super excited for it. Hope you are as well. It's a series that I've already created all the slides for. Like, I literally already am ready to log and load and get into it. So let's take advantage of that. Let's have some fun with it too. So hop on the hype train early. Let's talk about how I grade tight ends, because we got a lot to talk about today. But why does it matter if you don't understand what I'm talking about, right? Let's talk about this though. So I also grade on a 1 to 100 scale, as well as tiers, just like every other position I've done. Feel free to check those out as well. But I do have pretty much 4 different tiers. Should have like 5 or 6, because there's a little bit one that's above a tier 1, well, a little one that's below a bench guy. But you know what? I think we kind of get the hint based on my 1 to 100 scale where these guys should be. But essentially, it's going to be a starter, a flex starter, a developmental guy, or just a pure bench player. And I think that's pretty fair. Starter is essentially 75 up. Flex is 70 to 75. Developmental is 64 to 70, and then bench is below that. So keep that in mind. It also works with my numerical scale. But dream fits, don't take those too seriously. They're there for fun. And looking at those categories, I also got to mention, just like the linebackers, I'm actually having a role in this. And that role is essentially going to be showing you what type of role they're going to play. Whether they're a balanced tight end, essentially they can play every down. Whether they're a gadget player, essentially really good after the catch, not really great as an actual receiver. So, some of those more guys where you get the ball in their hands and then see what happens. You do have those tight ends in the NFL. And then like the receiving types, slot, etc. So you'll be seeing that over. But in terms of the 1 to 100 scale, or 0 to 100 scale, hopefully no one would ever get a 0. But, these are how I actually grade the player. Route running, pretty simplistic. I do believe that there's certain players that essentially run routes like your wide receiver, and I think they deserve to get credit for it. That is a 20-point category. So keep that in mind. This is, I'm 99% sure it's in order of most important to least important in terms of the weight. But to be fair, at the same time, contested catch is a 5-point category and versus press is a 10-point. So I lied. But essentially, it is most to least important. Separation. So there's certain players that aren't really the best route runners, but they use physicality very well. I want to be able to reward players who are able to have a holistic game and be able to actually generate separation. If you're a really good route runner, but you just can't generate separation with it, kind of mind-boggling how sometimes that can happen. It actually sometimes does, which is really weird. But anywho, basically, if you are running your routes well, but you can't use physicality to get open, there's just a way to be able to reward players for being well-rounded as a full receiver, which a tight end it is. Of course, there's the other side of that, which is blocking. That's a big portion of their game as well. In terms of the run after the catch, self-explanatory. Do you get the extra yard? Are you able to put your shoulder down? Like, are you going to be just a guy to catch a ball and run up the field? Or are you going to be someone where when you catch the ball, the defenders are going to have to really be on their A game to be able to tackle you? There certainly is going to be a nice little level of intricacy there in terms of run after the catch. Speed, self-explanatory. Are you fast? And then burst, acceleration. Acceleration doesn't look good in terms of a graphic, so I'll leave it there. But basically, are you explosive off the line, out of your cuts, etc.? Hands, it's pretty much based on the overall drop percentage, which tight ends usually get a pretty good margin or a pretty good volume, so it's very rare that the drop percentage is going to be very different from actually how solid their hands are. Contested catch, are you reliable? Like, if your quarterback just says YOLO, I'm going to throw it up, can you be someone that is essentially unguardable? there are certain players that do that better than others. And versus press, this is a brand new category, by the way. Same thing with separation for tight end. I ended up switching it up like I always do. But I do think improvement is key, and admitting that, what I had before wasn't the best. I think that's pretty understandable and respectable. So I'd respect someone who did it, so I might as well do it for you. Versus press, essentially, if a linebacker is on you, can you still win? Like, are you able to use your physicality to generate that separation? Are you able to use your athleticism to generate that separation? Are you going to run into a player and essentially ruin your whole route and be taken out of the play just because someone's there? There's a lot of tight ends, unfortunately, that do not handle press well. And a lot of receivers too. And I think it's a conversation that needs to be held more, because the best receivers have a lot of capabilities, a lot of traits that get around players who are really sticky. And it's not really mentioned too often. Then it factors the checks and balances. Like, are you a playmaker? This is something I don't really have in the categories, but for Alek Stanford receiver, he was always trying to get open, always trying to be able to make a play. That's something that I can't categorize in terms of a numerical score for everybody. So it's a way for me to be able to boost or drop someone's rating. Long-winded way of saying that's how they're graded. Let's get right into this. There's a couple players that did not have all 22 or were injured early in the year. And so not a huge fan of being able to grade guys. It's only a couple of games, if not, some of them don't even have that. But let's talk about the guys who I did not get a chance to grade. Luke Lackey, he's somebody who was graded the year before, so you can feel free to see my 2024 thoughts on him. I wasn't overly impressed, but I'm a fan of Iowa tight ends. I hope that he ends up bouncing back, but he and Eric all dealt with some pretty bad injuries last year. Gavin Bartholomew, he's someone who I was really dying to grade, but simply put, I don't work for PFF. I started doing some training thing for them, but even if I were able to make it through that, they send you literally just normal tape, and then you end up grading it based on that. It's not actual all 22 or anything like that. So I only grade in all 22. I'm done grading on, normal like videotape until it's like late in the season and it's to the point where like I need to have some actual opinion on every single rep that they do. But until that point, until I am actually pushed to where I can't use all 22, I'm going to only use all 22. And for those of y'all who don't understand what all 22 is, it's coaching tape. You get to see all 22 players on the field. It's not the broadcast footage, because that usually cuts off a lot of the play. So Gavin does not have any that is actually usable at the moment. So once that happens, and I'm sure it will very soon, praying to God it is very soon, I want to watch some more Pitt players, then we will definitely be open to that. Very excited to watch some of his tape, because he's someone who I really, really wanted to study. And then Aronde Gadsden, simply put, like, Syracuse isn't really a very valuable team for, the people who I use to, or people, the sources I use for tape. So let's just say they don't really like to be able to post it. But he's also really thin, 6'5", 223. He's going to be a slot weapon, but he was somebody who ended up, I think, being top 10 at the start of last season, just because he's really good after the catch. So I'm very excited to see that. Problem is, I'm not like losing sleep over it, because we have 13 other tight ends that are fully graded. Let's get into it. Starting out, you guys know I go to SMU. I'm extremely biased. This is by far the worst one. So RJ Maryland, SMU tight end. First time I think I'm ever featuring an SMU player on one of these more modern grading scales. So excited for that. Now I have a cool logo. I love the Dallas logo, the big D. Pause. The Dallas SMU logo is awesome. Those unis, awesome. But when we are looking at RJ, I have to be completely honest with you guys. He is somebody where I like it. Just you toss the ball to him, and then he's able to make it work with his top end speed, as well as the fact that he can lower his shoulder, etc. The problem is he's not a really good route runner. I'm not a big fan of that at all, but I was just really not wowed by him. And I think he's sub 40% pretty much in contested catch, and that's not great. But essentially the one saving grace of his is the fact that, if you want him to run deep, he is a vertical threat, and he's really, he'll test probably pretty damn well, because he picks up speed really quickly. But off the line, I was just not a fan of it. His route running was very rudimentary. Just like I did in my linebackers video, I'll be reading you guys one whole game of notes. And if you guys understand how I write notes, it's not like I watch a game and then I write my notes. I don't give a shit about that. I mean, these notes are for me, but you guys voted on Twitter, so if you don't want this, I guess you should probably vote on Twitter. But so feel free to follow me there. But I am somebody who likes to write notes as I'm watching the game, so you'll be able to experience my thoughts in real time. And sometimes I contradict myself, and that shows you, honestly, transparency as well. I just am not really a huge fan of, maybe I should say it this way. I'm not really going to sugarcoat my reactions. So when you guys hear this, you guys know it's real. You guys know it's from the heart, but it's also designed for me and not for you. But it's just a great way for you to actually see my thoughts throughout a game. So for RJ Maryland, this is Charlotte. It was the only game that they had in all 22, and surprisingly, it was one of his better games too. So I ended up saying that, while watching this, I saw that he lowered his shoulder, did a good job to gain some extra yards. You can see that with the rack grade. And I said he seems like a solid swing option. They were using him a lot, pretty much just, getting the ball in his hands and seeing what he does with it. Seems like they're pretty aware of his strengths. He was overpowered as a blocker. He was overwhelming in almost every category. He has deep speed, and it just was embarrassing. Like, there wasn't very much else to his game. He was very, very one-dimensional. Just catch the ball and run, or just run. That being said, SMU's offense thrives with that type of player. I just don't really think that translates to the NFL that much, because you don't really see SMU tight ends really excelling. And I liked Grant Calcaterra more. I like Kylan Granson more than RJ Maryland, but I do love the fact that he's very athletic. And again, all this is subject to change, but these are my honest opinions. And the thing is, if I'm wrong now, that's a great sign. It shows that I'll end up being a big fan. Let's just say RJ Maryland goes off and he's like way better. I'm somebody where I'm going to become an even bigger fan than what the fan base says, because I'm seeing how much progression they make. So keep that in mind as well. Caden Price scored, the tight end for Ole Miss. And I know the other tight end, I'm pretty sure Michael Trigg, he might have transferred, but wanted to potentially include him on this. Just not really enough out there, in my opinion, to grade him. And I don't think he really belongs on this list. Anyways, regardless, I'll end up reading my notes from my Texas A&M game for him. Essentially, he was pretty average in everything except for the statistical categories, and I did like the fact that he was physical. So he was a Maryland transfer to Ole Miss. Again, these are my notes. He's able to use his physicality versus the press. He's not an enforcer as a blocker, but he is willing to block. He does not change directions very quickly. He is simply not noteworthy. Then I said the moment I kind of like his route running, I find out it was another tight end. So that was a fun one. I was like, oh, nice. And I was like, oh, that's not you. That was like, damn. I ended up saying his best asset is evolving the route to find the soft spot. He had an awful drop after showing that he was able to get past the defender in his way via essentially a swim move, as basically an upper body release. And then I said he's a liability as a blocker in open space. So when he's on the line, not too shabby, but the moment he's going versus those linebackers, versus those DBs, he always was missing. Not a fan of that, because you do kind of have to, not be a liability when you're one of the guys out there, especially when you're the bigger guy. Being the liability as a blocker, not a great look. And I said, not going to lie, I'm kind of embarrassed for him. So not a great way to end off the tape study for him versus Texas A&M. Yeah, it could have been longer notes, but again, you guys get to see a holistic point of view, or a holistic grading scale right here. I don't have to be the one to tell you exactly what happens. I like to be able to write notes, though, so I could relive the game in terms of how my reactions were. Now let's talk about Bryson Nesbitt. He's a fun one. He's somebody that he's very similar to RJ Maryland, if I'm going to be blunt. Like, you look at that, it's pretty much someone who is a reliable catcher with the same exact, traits, right? Really good with the ball in his hands and pretty damn fast. But we'll end up reading some notes of his. He is somebody who I think he had somewhere in the 60% for his contested catch ability, which is awesome. I mean, I'm a big fan of that. Again, I'm somebody that wants all these players to succeed as well, but he's a little bit smaller. He's a little bit of an itty bitty fella there at 6'5", 235. For me, I want my tight ends 240 plus at a very minimum. 245 plus is more ideal. Regardless, of course, I watched him versus Clemson. If you ever see any any player go versus Clemson. You bet your ass that I'm watching it. But these are some of my notes from that game. I want to watch him so badly, but my lord, it's almost impossible with the lighting. Fun fact, please watch that game. It is embarrassing. The first couple of plays of the game, it is just like these dudes look like you look like you're watching a player through a flashbang in Call of Duty. It's like, you know how you're so disoriented and you can't see everything? It's like all like extremely like white everywhere. It looked like that. However, it changed. So there you go. That was a note to myself. I wasn't probably supposed to read that to you. I say he can flip his hips, but he does drift on his cuts. He tenses up as well before he ends up cutting. That's not a good sign. And you know why? Because when you do tense up, you're literally indicating to the defender you are about to cut. And it's not a fake. It is literally just saying, oh, okay, now I'm going to cut. The moment you tense up, it's like the suddenness. You think about Antonio Brown and all those videos where he's just making people look silly. Like all those cuts that he does, it looks like he's doing something entirely different than what he's about to do. And you have no idea that he's about to make a crazy cut, because he's not indicating to the defender what he's going to do. So Bryson Nesbitt does end up having quite a few indicators for that. They said he's versus press, he's been derailed a couple times. And that basically means, like I was talking about earlier, versus the press, he ends up having to change his route completely because the defender's saying, and he's just like, oh, okay. You essentially, like, you got to take control of that situation. You got to find your way to get around the defender. He ends up letting the defender guide the process with that. Not a fan of that. Of course, the 235, not really a big surprise for me. But at the same time, these guys are bigger than the DBs that are messing him up. And then I said he has poor acceleration for being under 240 pounds. He fluctuates with his contest and catch ability. And then I said Nate McCollum has my attention, as does Andrew Makuba. Dude, Nate McCollum, the wide receiver, like for UNC, that guy's pretty baller. I have him listed for the deep dive on the receiver class. So he'll be someone who I do put in there. Definitely a name to watch from UNC. And then Andrew Makuba did a really good job versus him. Both of those guys, they had a really good match. And my next group is the safeties and slots. Andrew Makuba is part of that. So very excited for that. And my last note is that he's just generated zero separation, which is a big shocker for me. Even like RJ Maryland can generate it with separation with speed. Did not see that with Bryson. Did not see that. And I think it is because you pretty much know exactly what he's going to do. And he is not willing to go the extra mile to go the route that he needs to go. He just goes what's given to him by the defender. And you got to do what you got to do, man. You go for the route that's given to you by the defender when the defender is not just pushing you into a new route, right? Like, you can evolve your route for what's best in the place, and I think that's honestly a really, really good trait. But this is a totally different situation where he just simply is at the mercy of other defenders. Tyler Warren is next. I made a tweet saying I was destined to hate this guy. And there was one player I just started falling in love with. This is the tight end, all right? 61.75 doesn't seem like it, but let me explain. First off, this dude has like a 15% drop rate. I'm like, Tyler, that's an instant way to shoot yourself in the foot grade-wise. But, this is someone where I have a lot of clips of Katron Allen, Nick Singleton up on my Twitter. So feel free to, again, follow me over there, guys. I literally post all 22. It's free. Go check it out. And it gives you more context to what I'm saying here as well, because that's what I'm using to describe. But, anywho, Tyler Warren was somebody where he always popped up as a low light. He was missing a block and just doing a really, really poor job. And I was like, okay, well, this guy's going to suck. Let's just get through this, yada, yada. And he surprised me. At the start of the Ohio State game, I'll end up reading my notes. Don't you worry about, the Michigan game. I watched him versus Ohio State too, but versus the Michigan game, which I'm pretty sure was his lowest graded game as well. He ended up he was like, wow, actually, he's just slipping up, and I was seeing his worst moments. He's doing really, really good job. As the game went on, it ended up tapering again. I'll read my notes from it, but essentially, Tyler Warren, when you use him as essentially a pass protector on the line of scrimmage, he's going to do a really good job. The moment you make him move and block, he cannot, and I repeat, cannot do it. And, it was really, really frustrating because the way he started that Michigan game was phenomenal and it just ended up tapering off. And that's why he doesn't have really solid categories in a lot of these. But I believe versus Ole Miss, if I'm not mistaken, that was their bowl game. He ended up putting up like 100 yards, over 100 yards, which was, and he was playing the slot for that game. And I think that's awesome. And I think he can do that. I think he can work as a receiving slot. But if you use him in pass protection as an inline tight end, I think it would work as well. But let's read the notes. Why not, right? So this is the game versus Michigan. I say he's surprisingly explosive, and he's willing to block. He just blocked really damn well. What the hell? Because I came into the game with the notion that this guy was absolute cheeks. I said, what the F is going on? This guy is balling the F out. He ended up having some really awesome reps. Like, I see the it factor with him, but I couldn't give it to him. I couldn't give it to him. It wouldn't even matter anyways. It wouldn't shift his position. Anyways, when pulling, he has a hard time processing quickly. You'll see on a lot of those low lights, it was him being pulled to basically go into a hole, and he ended up doing it very, very poorly. When he's not in line, he does seem to lack the mechanics and process ability required to be a good H-back. Basically, don't have him on the move. And then I said he cooled off as the game went on. I thought that he had some really, really, really solid routes. He showed the ability to use his physicality versus press, and he is a very athletic player. So I do really like what he has as a foundation. I think that he's a lot better than what 61.75 says. But the fact is, if you're not consistent, you're not going to ever get any reps in the NFL. Like, you're going to be a special teamer. And right now, based on the tape, that's what he is. However, I think he does have the ceiling to be a fringe starter. And that's awesome. I really do hope that for him because I have seen the flashes. Problem is, flashes never equate to actual success in the NFL because you need to be consistent on your A game the whole time. But still, big fan of what Tyler Warren could be. Now let's talk about CJ Dippre. I don't know how to pronounce it. Don't go quoting me. I'm not going to go onto a website and find a pronunciation. If I'm going to be honest, you don't come to me for pronunciations. You come to me for talking about football analysis. Granted, some people still don't want to do that. They just like the clown. Still love y'all though. But CJ Dippre is a fun one. He was somebody where I was watching a lot of edge rushers and even some defensive interiors and noting that Alabama tight end 81 was kicking their ass. So I was like, this is not a name that probably many people really know, but I'm going to look at it anyways. And what I saw was pretty damn awesome. He is a beast when it comes to blocking. But more importantly, he just is used in such a pigeonholed manner, and he doesn't have a ton of receiving reps that it's like he has over a 15% drop rate. I ended up boosting his hands grade because of how few targets he actually has. I think it was something like 40 targets, and I think he has 3 drops, somewhere in that vicinity, right? It might have been a little bit more than that. Regardless, CJ Dippre is just not used as a receiving threat. Kind of hard to be able to grade him as a pure receiver when you don't do that. But CJ Dippre is somebody who I ended up watching quite a few games, and I ended up coming away with some really positive notes, but he's just super duper raw, like super raw. But let's look at some notes about him. I think I watched him versus Georgia. Let's read these notes. So I ended up going into the game saying, I already know I love his blocking highlights. He has very little production, but he does have a few starts. He has to heavily decelerate before making sharp cuts. That's just what happens. A lot of guys just have to hit the brakes. You remember, if you ever look up Amari Cooper's combine, you will see the fact that he's like the ideal specimen for route running in terms of he's running full speed and he can sink his hips and turn on a dime. Some guys have to actually just slow down completely, and it takes them a minute before actually making that cut. And there's certain tight ends, I think Caden Pricecorn is guilty of this as well. They basically stop, and then they try to shake somebody off, and then they cut, and it's like, dude, you're not fooling anybody. It's like a dude who's fat with a beard. It's like, dude, we know a double chin is under there. Like, you're not fooling anybody, and you sure as hell don't have the acceleration to get out of there. Just like that dude does not have the lack of chin to be able to clean shave. So let's try to keep it 100 here, right? So regardless, let's keep going with this. He does flash head fakes on sharp cuts. but he hits the brakes hard. Remember what I said? It's not fooling anybody. I do appreciate the fact that he still tries to fool people. Maybe if he increases his route running ability, that will end up being a positive trait. He ended up taking on Nazir Stackhouse, which, I mean, that doesn't mean jack to me. Y'all know my vendetta versus Nazir Stackhouse. But regardless, a tight end ended up being able to block Nazir Stackhouse and did it very well. I say you can tell when he's about to cut. He ended up having some good rack ability, even though it's very limited, but ended up being somebody where I did appreciate the fact that he ended up having good acceleration, ended up having good contact balance as well. And I said he has very limited tape overall due to the heavy rotation of tight ends. And spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about one of those guys in a little bit. But regardless, this is just somebody that, like, when you want to be able to just pound the rock, and have somebody where if he needs to slip out, you can give him the ball and he's not going to be a liability with the ball in his hands. This is exactly the guy for you. Now, he did have some bad drops, but I do think that's because of how little rhythm he can get when he's essentially just a blocking tight end that runs some routes and doesn't really get targets. So, hoping for the best for CJ Dupre. And now that he has less competition there at Bama, we will see how he can really step it up. Ben Urosic, by the way, just committed to Georgia not too long ago. So, spoiler alert, he doesn't even have a picture on his Instagram of him committing to Georgia, though. That kind of irritated me because I wanted to get that for you guys here, but who gives a shit? But Ben Urosic, he's somebody who I've been studying for the past couple years, someone who I think is a overall really solid player. He is the gadget guy. I think he had like 5 carries in a game earlier in the season, which is like pretty damn awesome because it's not like it's a gimmick. He actually like has really, really good athleticism overall. And I saw an end around for him that ended up being like, he had really good vision. Like, I was like, what the hell? Like, this is almost running back level vision for him. So he's actually really good with the ball in his hands. And deep down, I want him to pair up with Colby Parkinson there in Los Angeles and just see how they go. The Stanford duo, as I might say. But Ben Urosic's one of those players where I did not ever see him get any form of separation. And it breaks my heart because I really do want Ben Urosic to succeed. I think that when it comes to like slants and skinny posts, he can flip his hips well, but it's just not something where he accelerates out of his cut. But again, we're going to be reading one of my games for you just so you can see my exact thoughts on him. So I ended up watching his game versus Oregon this year. So I'll give you some notes from that game specifically. So he didn't even catch a ball that game. So I still wanted to see how he performs because this is a very key game. You don't have to catch a ball, by the way, to show what you can do as a receiver. You know why? Because it's up to the quarterback to throw you the ball. So you can still see how guys run routes. So this is specifically a game right here that I watched that did not have a catch. He did have a rush or 2 rushes in the game though. But he's transferred to Georgia. He's not an awful blocker. He's definitely willing. He's just a little bit small and he can get thrown. He got thrown twice. He ended up getting a holding call because he's obviously not going to be in a position versus, why am I forgetting the edge rusher Brandon Dorless? There we go. I said he got 0 separation. He has solid downfield vision on that end around. Route running is just not there. His biggest asset is his motor, which is not awful, but it's certainly not what I would want to be his staple asset. And he ended up getting another handoff and doing a really damn good job. I think he had 2 carries for 18 yards that game. And, you might say that that's not a really big deal, but to me it is. Like, because he really did demonstrate the fact that with the ball in his hands, which is honestly far more than any reception would tell me. Like, I got to see what he is able to do when he can watch a play develop in front of him. So I'm very excited for what he can do. I think Sean Payton would be great for a tight end like this as well. But he's just not physical enough. He gets bullied around. And simply put, he has a physical profile to do well as a route runner. He just doesn't really do it. But we'll see what happens there in Georgia. Now we go to Mason Taylor. So Mason Taylor is the epitome of just really average in a lot of categories. Again, C is adequate for me. But he's someone who has pretty damn high IQ in terms of where to sit down. I just did see a lot of traits of his that I wasn't overwhelmingly positive. Let's put it that way. When, I didn't get a great feeling when watching him, but there's nothing I could really knock him fully for. But again, the hands at that C category is roughly, I believe, that like 9 to 10% drop rate range, 9 to 11. So keep that in mind as well. But let's read my notes for him. This is a game that I watched for his Alabama. We'll give you my notes from that game specifically. So he ended up having a nasty double move. Okay, so that's actually a great point that I made. Look at that. It's a point that I forgot to bring up. He is essentially a double move specialist. I don't think he runs routes very well, but when it comes to the double moves, like essentially going out and then up, this guy is a freak. I don't know what's up with it. I don't know how that's even, a thing, but it ended up being like the first rep. I was like, oh shit. Okay. Wow. That's awesome. But regardless, he ended up having a nasty double move to start out. He's showing nice get off and overall speed and ability to cut well enough. That ended up not being the case later on. So I ended up saying he's able to go toe-to-toe versus edge rushers when he's able to block. Also something that ended up not being the case over the whole game. He seems to get thrown off by press. Ended up being the case. You can see the C grade right there. This guy's double moves are elite. I don't know about the normal routes. Ended up not being the case. He flashed a swim move on a deep route. I remember that. I think that was also just a fade route in the red zone. Again, it's that swim move that I'm talking about where there's a defender in front of you and then you just pretty much get over him and get past him. It's a beautiful move. It's one of my favorites. I remember there's a Bills receiver that I'm forgetting his name right now. I think it's Dawson. He ended up doing that consistently. I'm forgetting because I ended up comping Dotson to him. So I'm forgetting it off the top of my head. Regardless, you guys can go check that video out from a while ago. Anyways, I was a big fan of Jahan Dotson. But that was the guy who I ended up comping him to. It's not Dawson because Dotson would not have been to Dawson. There's a Bills wide receiver. It's not Andre Reed. It was another guy. But regardless, he was like, it was just 1-to-1 with that. That was something that I just absolutely love. Again, it's a great way of getting past the press. But regardless, let's get back to my notes. He kind of jogs before cuts. It's another thing where you gotta go full speed. Like, I know that you might say that's a high standard, but we're talking about the best athletes on earth. Unfortunately, the high standard has to be high. He seems to be a one-trick pony with double moves. He ended up having a nice adjustment for a ball that was behind him, and he followed that up with an unbelievably awful drop over while he was wide open in the middle. So just overall, I thought his game was not really noteworthy apart from the double move. Like, he's athletic and he could do a double move. So I think that he's a little bit pigeonholed in terms of his role, but as tight end 2/3, I do think that you could use him role specifically very, very well. But let's continue on. Jalen Conyers. This is a fun one. Unfortunately, I got really, really heated when I ended up watching his tape because I just realized how stupid Arizona State was in terms of their tight end usage. By the way, his blocking might be a D-. I'm going to call this out right now. He had like 1 or 2 blocking reps over multiple games. Like, there's just no actual translatable blocking reps for Jalen Conyers. They use him in the slot and as a receiver. So keep that in mind. He has a lot of room to potentially grow. Hence why I have that 2+ there. And also the 3- shows just how little he was used in a translatable role. Excuse me. Regardless, he's a big-ass dude, 6'4", 265. That's a really solid build, especially when you figure out that this guy moves extremely fluidly. And that's why ASU liked him as well. He was a big receiver there. And he's somebody that, like, I think we'll go over my notes as well because I ended up watching a couple games and I'll give you my Oregon notes. But, he's somebody that you'll see him pop out right away. Like, the thing is, I'll be like really grouchy, like looking at this heavy rotation of tight ends for Arizona State when the other tight ends are absolute butt cheeks compared to Conyers. We'll leave it as is. But it's just the moment Conyers is out there, there's an essence to him. There's an aura, so to speak, to him. So I really do think he has a ton of potential. I don't know why you transfer Tech over some other schools, but it is what it is. But let's read my notes for him regardless. But I ended up saying he's a Texas Tech transfer from Arizona State. He did not start the Oregon game, but he ended up having more reps than another game, which he did start. I ended up watching UCLA's game as well, though. So I ended up saying he was jogging mid-rep. He indicated a cut, but was pretty sharp, and the defender was perfect. There was a specific route that got jumped. It was an out route, and it was just like a 5-yard out. It did kind of have an indication that he was going to cut, but he ended up wasting no movement. He's actually a really good route runner. So shout out to him for that. But it did end up not fooling anybody. And a fun fact, that person who made the cut on that route is going to be a linebacker that I'm going to be studying for the deep dive. So super excited for that. So shout out to number 2. I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head, but really good linebacker nonetheless. We're going to be talking about him probably in a couple months. But regardless, number 13 looks explosive on ASU as well. He missed a touchdown while he was diving on a very, very nice slant. He had very solid twitch and his get off with respectable speed. I'll actually end up tossing my UCLA notes in here as well. He flashed a swim move downfield, which ended up getting him proper position. I would want better catch in traffic, because he had a couple that were knocked out of his hands. I'm genuinely pissed off that ASU did not use him at all because he has a ton of untapped potential. He made a guy miss in space. He ended up tripping, however. So he ended up making he juked a guy at 265. Freaking ridiculous. But he ended up not having a single rep where he blocked. I love that. ASU, what are you doing? What are you doing, man? But Jalen Conyers, bottom line, I could see him ending up being tight end 1 if he ends up actually really applying himself and being able to flourish in his role. The problem is it's going to be a pretty big stretch for him to hit that ceiling. Now let's talk about Amari Niblack. I think it's Niblack. The block. I don't know. We'll call him Amari for the time being. Former Bama tight end transfer to Texas. So he was number 87. So when I was watching CJ Dupre, I was like, damn, this 87 guy's pretty damn good. Ended up being Amari. Shout out to, I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head, but an X user ended up commenting on my post. I was talking about Tyler Warren, but ended up saying like, oh, you're talking about Amari Niblack? And I was like, no, I'm probably not going to include him though. And I was like, yeah, I got to include him. So shout out to you, my friend. This is for you. Ended up watching him and I'm like, goddamn. Like, this guy is freaky. He's like Jatavian Sanders, but more athletic. Like, that's my comp for him. I don't do comps, but he was awesome. Like, really, really awesome. He didn't take any reps off. Just 231. Limited usage there at Bama. And, overall, I mean, I was very, very, very impressed. I will still read my notes, though. He was my last tight end watched. So, Bama tight end 84. So, he's number 84 when you watch Bama. So, I said he very, very solid athleticism, stays alive the whole play. You don't realize how irritating it is when you see players just like, when the play's going on and they just know that the play probably won't go to them, they'll start jogging and essentially take the rest of the rep off. Not Amari. So I said I love his wide streak fade. He had a nice flip of his hips and a sharp cut with a burst. Essentially, he was like on the line of scrimmage, went a little bit out, essentially either indicating a flat and then just cut up field and had some nice acceleration there. He's not afraid to block and didn't actually look bad either. He literally feels like a more athletic Jatavian Sanders. Well, almost like I said that. He had a drop on a slightly tough ball, but he should have caught it. Does seem to run into press rather than get around it. See that C grade? Maybe that's why. He ended up catching the ball and pushed for a couple extra yards, something I really do appreciate. He seems to run the route assigned over slightly deviating it to the best route for the play. Another issue that I talked about earlier. And then I said he finally used a stiff arm to get some separation versus press. So that's why his versus press grade is actually not lower. He ended up having one rep where the defender stuck to his hip and he was actually able to quasi push off, which again, I'm not trying to get guys to do OPI, but I really want to see you dig your shoulder into them, get a little bit nudgy and get a little physical because they're grabbing you. If you don't make it egregious, they're not going to call a flag on you. Like, it is what it is. You have to be able to fight back because defenders get grippy in the NFL. Pause. So Amari ended up flashing that. I really love the potential here, though. He really is one of the fastest tight ends I've seen. I was debating calling him Darren Waller, but, I was not someone who watched Darren Waller in college. Like, you guys know I started really studying college in like 2019 or maybe like, yeah, it was like 2019 when I really started watching games, 2018 where I first got into college ball. So like it's been not that long so I don't really have very many references, and I'm not going to bullshit references unless I've seen guys in the NFL and I could just say, oh, this style really reminds me of, which is why I'm able to say Darren, but it really was like Jatavian, but better. It's a perfect scheme fit there for Texas, and I could totally see him being a top 100, if not top 64 pick. Problem is he's 231. So at least he can block. It's just physically speaking, when you're going up against 260, 270, 280 pounders who run as fast as the 230 edges in college, probably not going to be a primary asset. So excited to see what he's going to do, though. Oscar Delp is next at number 4. Oscar is a really, really solid tight end. He was the backup for Brock Bowers, but Brock actually ended up having some time that he missed. So Oscar got to show what he has in the tank in terms of his overall ability when he was out. So we got to see some good translatable tape from Oscar. You know, Oscar overall, I think that he's a very, very balanced tight end. I'm not saying that because the role is there, but he's somebody that is he's adequate as a receiver, if not a little bit better than that. He is a reliable blocker, as all Georgia tight ends are, and he's really, really fluid as an athlete. And he's reliable when you throw him the ball, and he's somebody that is not going to be phased. Even at 245, I was a little bit worried that he's going to be a little bit effed up by press. Didn't happen. So let's go into one of the games that I watched of his. Ended up, man, I forgot how early I watched him because I'm looking at all my tight end notes here. Ended up watching him versus Missouri. So let's get some notes from there. I said he feels like a Walmart Brock Bowers. Oh, I wonder how I got that. He's a good block for the most part. He releases and goes to the second level too quickly. Kind of felt like Donovan Jackson when I saw that. He's a solid route runner, but he does nothing crazy, but he is very solid. He has more speed than he displays on a regular basis. I ended up seeing this on a specific streak route that he ran. I was just like, where the hell has that been all game? So I gave him credit for that over kind of, looking at what his average speed was. Usually goes against my my normal ethics, but I do think that was, Oscar's not going to be someone to take reps off, and I didn't see that anything else. So maybe it was just more play time, like timing designed, rather than actually showing his overall ability, which we got to see it on that rep, which is a big plus. I ended up saying that he is not afraid of contact, which is awesome because some guys freeze before contact. He does not. Ended up saying that tight end, I think number 7 is really good as well. So let's keep a note on that. He ended up having a poor curl route, ended up, basically turning around pretty slow and ended up, drifting a little bit. Not a fan of that. And then I said he had a good adjustment to a low ball after an iffy in route. So he didn't run a route very well, but the ball was thrown off target, ended up actually adjusting and making a really good catch. So overall, this is somebody that I don't see a very low floor for him. He has a really high floor, and I don't know if the ceiling's necessarily great. Didn't really see him do very much after the catch, and that's okay. He's just going to be a really reliable tight end too for me. That's why he's a fringe starter, and that's perfectly fine. Let's continue on. So here we go. We got the starters. This was a surprise to me, but of course, when you end up having like a 3% drop rate, probably going to be someone who I'm going to be grading pretty highly, especially when you're a really good athlete. Jake Brittingstool is awesome. I'll put it that way. He flashes big time, right? I'm talking about where guys are trying to press him, and talk about that swim move. This dude is timing it perfectly. Look at X. I ended up putting up a lot of really good clips of all these tight ends, but there's some in there of Jake, and I love Jake. I really do. Regardless, wanted to watch him versus Notre Dame because my number 1 tight end, spoiler alert, is a linebacker from Notre Dame. So I wanted to see linebacker versus tight end combo there, and some other really good players in that Notre Dame defense. So I did end up saying he's not overly explosive for 230 pounds. He has a nice swim move versus press. He faked a route before running a fade, but he did end up running into a defender, which he ended up getting past anyways. He's pretty feisty as a blocker for 230 pounds, so he's not a liability. Again, C+ is above adequate, which is big plus for someone at 230. His signature move is the swim move, and honestly, he's a solid route runner. He feels like an on-sale version of Colston Loveland with a better release package. Turns out he has better catching stats too. He has started to heat up he started to heat up over the game, especially as a receiver. Would still think he'd be more athletic as his size, but he is a solid athlete. I can see a big difference in speed with him versus the slower tight end on Clemson. So ended up being able to see that 1-to-1 comparison, which is a big plus. Then I said he could track poorly down. He ends up doing a poor job blocking downfield in terms of tracking where the defender is going to be, leading to him being out of position. I said I'm a fan of him overall. I think he needs to work on acceleration above everything else. He's just slow off the line, but I did end up seeing him basically become a burner down the field, which is, I'll take that. I'd rather have a guy who's a bit of a burner, especially based on timing routes, than somebody who can't have that ability, because I think acceleration is easier to develop than top speed. Now let's talk about Colston Loveland. Right, this is what y'all are here for. You can be like, oh, how is Colston not number 1? It has nothing to do with the fact, technically he's tied number 3/2, so maybe that could irritate you even more. Regardless, I really like Colston Loveland. The big issue with Colston is the fact that AJ Barner took a lot of the responsibility as a blocker away from him, and Colston was working essentially as an X receiver. Doing a damn good job at it, though, I must say. But my grading scale is very, very difficult for tight ends, especially because a lot of it is based on, can you catch the ball? How often do you not catch the ball? He's essentially, you look at the 3 main categories and he kicks ass in it. Pretty much the main 5 categories are route running, separation, blocking, speed, and acceleration. And those are his best traits. So that's a big plus. I'm a big fan of Colston Loveland overall. But out of the games I watched, let's look at the Alabama notes. So I said, oh my lord, he started out as an X wide receiver. What the hell? Forgetting that AJ Barner existed. He's doing a very solid job of route fakes, so that's why he is the best route running grade out of everybody. He can fight through contact. He ended up having a poor post corner, so pew, it looks like a post route, but it's a corner route. But again, is what it is. He just bench pressed the DB. That's on Twitter. Feel free to check that out. It was unbelievable. I was like, oh my lord, hello. I say he's not a bad blocker at all. He's not elite. That's why they have AJ Barner. They say he did a nice turn in the run game. Essentially, when he's blocking, you turn the defender to open up the hole behind you. It's pretty self-explanatory. But he has, I said, the routes that are in breaking from the left to the right, so going that way, seem to be near elite, while the ones breaking right from the left are more lacking. So I think I'm talking about out routes here, regardless. He continues to run new routes as the play evolves. There's that playmaking aspect, another reason why he has a +2 on his it factor. But regardless, he does struggle versus press a bit. I ended up watching some reps versus Iowa as well, so screw it. I'll just toss it in here because I love you guys. I said he has some smooth routes, including an out route. His drag route has been mid. A lot of tight ends actually can't run a drag route for some reason. I know that you're supposed to keep it at a relatively slower pace so that, you're going to be a check down option. But, guys, get some separation on those. You're not going to be useful if your quarterback wants a check down option if the defender's on your ass anyways. You're not going to be very open. Regardless, that's not a Colston Loveland comment. That's an overall tight end comment. But ended up saying he might have panicked when he was near contact. I said he did a perfect skinny post, ended up dropping it, but flashed acceleration, but I didn't see it often enough. So basically there was a skinny post where he ended up just generating beautiful separation, ended up dropping the route on there. So feel free to watch the Iowa game versus Michigan. I'm a big fan of Colston Loveland. Bottom line, there's not really much to his game that I think is a negative. It's just I don't really see him being a primary asset versus very physical linebackers. And if he continues to not be able to catch passes at a consistent rate, I don't know if he can become the focal point of an offense. But if he fixes his catching issues, I could work around him with more physical linebackers. I'm willing to say you could be the focal point of my offense if you can be unbelievably reliable as a catcher. And I think he can. So without AJ Barner there this year, I think he's going to take a big step up, and it's not like he can make much more of a step up. He's just a really, really awesome weapon there. And, without Roman Wilson, without Cornelius Johnson, without AJ Barner, There is already a role that he had, and he's going to soak up more and more responsibility. He's going to be a great tight end. Now, let's talk and finish off with Mitchell Evans. So, Mitchell Evans is a freaking baller. He is a baller. I don't know why these top tight ends can't catch the ball. All of them have like 10% drop rates. It's like, dude, like, come on, man. But, I mean, these guys are targeted a lot too, so they do have opportunities to rectify their drops. It's not like CJ Dupre where, a couple of drops end up looking like it's absolute shit show on the statistics. But regardless, Mitchell Evans is someone who flashes acceleration, and the thing is, he had more jaw-dropping reps probably than any of the tight ends that I saw. It really was just consistently like, wow. But I do think he is a little bit more of a roller coaster as a receiver between perfect reps and then, kind of, So that's why it is at that B grade, which is actually really, really damn solid. But statistically speaking, he's also somebody who is that above 50% contested catch guy. I think it's closer to the 60% as well. But he's someone who is a great athlete overall. He's perfectly balanced. Just not somebody where if you want to do like a swing pass or a tight end screen, probably not going to be your guy. But you never know. You can get Mitchell Evans and Ben Urosic. That's kind of a killer duo in terms of what they're actually going to be best at. Regardless, let's read my notes from one of the games I watched, which is NC State. Pretty good game to watch because of Peyton Wilson there, who only fell to the third round because of a degenerative knee issue. So we're talking about first round, second round quality linebacker with some health issues. Not during this game. So let's look at it. So I said he has good straight line speed, ended up being even better. He had some deep routes. I was like, oh shit. I said he was not showing 100% speed at the break, but he has nice burst and a sharp cut on a specific in route. He's a good blocker. He pancaked two different guys. I love that about him. He's such a beast. He has some speed variations on his routes. So those of y'all who don't really understand what that means, or I guess don't understand what I mean when I say that, some guys just run the same exact speed every play. Pretty easy for a defender to track you and know exactly what's going on when, they just know you're going to run that speed. Speed variation allows you to also just basically surprise defenders. Sometimes you can just break out of a route a lot faster than they expect you to. Sometimes they'll overcompensate thinking that you're going to be a little bit faster, and that can even give you separation too. It's a great way to be able, it's very intricate looking at speed variation versus guys taking some reps off and jogging for parts of it. So that's just something that you get in time. But you'll see with certain guys who have personality issues when they're jogging, and then you'll start realizing the differences. But it's an elite trait. It is. So I ended up saying he sat in a soft spot when the play broke down. So he has good IQ overall when the play breaks down. He can overcommit when going to block guys at the next level, putting himself in a bad position. Seems to be a common trait of most players, but still noteworthy nonetheless. I say he had a good use of physicality versus press, amazing release on a seam. He ended up dropping it, but it was 1 out of 2 that he did all year. I did say he is not afraid of contact as well. Overall, a tight end that is worth starting in the NFL. 6'5", 260 as well. What a badass. But that's going to be the video. This was a longer one. It was something that I really did want to take a little bit more time to delve into, and especially with reading a full game note, it's not going to be as quick as what I normally do. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. We're going to be getting videos every single day, so I'm super excited for it. Thank you for watching. See you on the far side. Peace.